Hi everyone, welcome to Meta Interview with Klara Kopi. Today I'm here with Zeitwarp. He's a near-exclusive crypto artist and occasional music hacker. Hi Zeitwarp, how are you?
Yeah, hi Clara. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm great. It's a very pretty day today.
Yeah, no, it's good here as well. I mean, I'm in the UK. It's near Cambridge. It's good weather today.
Oh, cool. Is what? No, not summer. Spring, right?
Well, it's the sort of beginning of summer. Yeah, we're on and the end of spring, beginning of summer. But it can be anything in the UK. But it's pretty good at the moment.
Awesome. So please tell us a bit about yourself. Where did you come from? Remarkable events in your life? Anything you think that is important for people to know about who is Zeitwarp?
The thing is about myself is obviously I've had a longer life, and so there's a bit more to fill in about how I got here. I've often lived by this David Bowie quote, which I've repeated on several interviews, which is that aging is the extraordinary process where you eventually become the person you always should have been. And it's certainly something, I mean, that's an aspiration perhaps rather than a reality, because a lot of people don't have the luxury of indulging that. But for myself, I basically, in terms of how I became a conceptual crypto artist exclusive to the near blockchain, there are two strands. One is an art strand and one is a blockchain strand. And I deal with the latter first, which is that I kind of wandered into Bitcoin in 2014 and really was put off by the Mt. Gox hack in the same year, and I re-entered in 2017 and was put off by CryptoKitties and the ICO crash, and I eventually came back to it. By the time I'd come back to it, I was a full-time artist making these kind of music graffiti paintings that are behind me, making and selling them to people with an interest in music and art, and eventually sort of wandered back into the Web3 world in late 2020 and heard an interview with Nate Gaia from Mintbase on a podcast called The Defiant, talking about something called Near Protocol and how he was burning down the Ethereum version of Mintbase and rebuilding it from scratch on Near Protocol. And that was really my segue into Near. And once I was there, the community that welcomed me, I always think of Chloe, the dev, and Vandal, the people who really, really welcomed me in, the early Create-based calls and the NXM calls on a weekly basis, they really sort of cemented my place of thinking this is a home for me. And I think it was the carbon neutral appeal of Near, along with the fact it was very early and the technology seemed to be an answer to all the problems that were existing with other more mature blockchains, convinced me to stay. And so that was really the key part of my crypto journey. In terms of art, I define myself as an outsider because I didn't go to art school. I have no representational artistic ability in the sense that I notice I guess that your paintings behind you, and I can't paint at all in terms of representational art. I can't draw. And I was deselected from the school art course at the age of 14 because it was all representational, and I had I'd already developed an interest in abstraction and ideas. And so art to me was kind of always a hobby rather than a profession. And following the narrative of the Bowie quote, eventually it just took over. And it took 25, 30 years for it to take over. But it did, and so that's the milestones I always point to are, if you like, the development of street art, the realization that I didn't have any representational ability, the emergence of street art, which was kind of sloganeering initially, before it became very aesthetic, and then digital art with things like Microsoft Paint and Photoshop being tools that I could basically manipulate an environment to produce the kind of ideas and concepts and questions that I was really interested in. And I said I ended up painting these music graffiti paintings, which were really my first point of call as a professional artist, in the sense that I was selling them to people. I previously, in the 90s, I used to give away all my art to charity shops, and hopefully there are people out there with 25, 30-year-old pieces of art that they bought in a charity shop somewhere. But in terms of professional, I was selling these music graffiti paintings, and it's an art of process rather than an art of ideas, because it's about the transformation between sound and vision. Whereas my conceptual crypto art on Near is very much an art of ideas and an art of questions. And I think that's the key thing about Web3, is it opened up an ability to actually explore the full spectrum of what I was thinking about artistically and philosophy, in terms of philosophy. And when you compare that to the in real life art establishment, where if you haven't done your 3 years at art college, you'll basically always be an outsider, and you will struggle to justify conceptualism. So there you go. That's a long-winded way around my journey, but the two strands come together.
That was brilliant. And yeah, it's hard, right? I mean, especially when you make conceptual art, people want you to have like almost a book talking about what you do and how did you came to the concept of your art.
I tend to overwrite everything and over-answer everything. I'm currently writing a Medium document about my glitch breaks, which are a derivative of the music graffiti paintings. And I'm about 10 pages at the moment, and the accompanying document that I'm writing to explain it is at 20 pages. And maybe no one's ever going to read it, but the point is, I feel the need to explain what it is that I'm trying to do. And sometimes that falls under the heading of too long, didn't read, TLDR.
I like reading papers about art. Sometimes I don't have the time, but I like to.
Yeah.
I really want to organize my time to read more. I want to read it. Just send my way.
I will do.
It'll be awesome. And did you feel that there was a transition about the way you made art before and going to Web3 and blockchains? Did you feel that there was a change of way what you do?
Yeah, very much so. I think I described it previously as it felt, it felt like the Berlin Wall came down in the sense of total liberation. Mm. In terms of in real life physical art, I was very much working on a street art aesthetic. I mean, obviously, the music graffiti paintings, I'm using a stencil. Although they're hand painted, the music notes that I hand paint them. They are worked off a stencil aesthetic from street art. The backgrounds are essentially a musical idea represented as abstraction, so they're really only semi-abstract. And while I find it an interesting process. It's part of a whole project I call feedback loops, where you take the musical idea, make it into a visual painting, then you put the visual painting through visual synthesizers to produce noise. Then you take that noise, run it back through a process that will produce imagery in the form of a spectrogram, and you can keep looping it round and round. And my son's a jazz musician, so I can then give him a painting and he will work up music based on the painting. So it's an ongoing cyclical transformation process. And while that was interesting, and I still find it interesting, it's still a key part of my work, the feedback loops way of generating new versions. The real thing about Web3 was that it basically enabled me to say, okay, so now I really want to express the things that I've been thinking about for 30 years. And some of these things are, for me, they're fascinating. I like paradox, juxtaposition, inconsistency, and the idea that something is not always what it seems. And so you can take these kind of subjective thought processes or paradoxes in yourself and extrapolate them into a kind of objective universality, hopefully, that people observing it will say, I hadn't thought about that before. I hadn't thought in that way before. There's something going on here that's interesting. And as I said before, as an outsider artist, it's very hard to be taken seriously in real life unless you've gone through the system. You can do this, and there are outliers and people that will, that make a career out of conceptual thinking within art who haven't been through the system, but they are rare. And one of the great things about Web3 to me is that you control your access to market. There are no guarantees you will sell your work. There are no guarantees of an audience, but there's nobody saying, no, you can't do that, especially on Near. And while we lack the gated super rares of ETH, where there is somebody saying, no, you can't come in because you haven't got enough, or you haven't, we don't like your work. You can't have it both ways. We don't have an elite conceptual art movement on Near as such, but equally we have an open, an open pathway for anybody to make anything they want and to put it in front of an audience and try and get an audience to see it. There's nobody saying, no, you can't do it.
You're very right. Near is very inclusive, right?
Absolutely.
With the bounties, and all the time someone is coming up with a new exhibition or an idea to bring artists together. And yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Just a quick question. Can you hear the noise on the background?
I can, yeah.
Is it too loud?
I can hear it now, yeah. I mean, it's only just started.
Yeah, I'll cut it off this part that I'm talking to you, because I'm turning if I'm too silent, it's because I'm turning my sound off, because my neighbor is going crazy with the lawn.
Okay.
And I didn't want to postpone our interview one more time, because sometimes it's hard.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'll start occupying my thing off and just make the question.
Okay.
But you can hear me. I can make the question.
I can hear you, and I can hear the question. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So what do you think of DAOs? Are you involved with any DAO, or you plan to create a DAO? How does it come?
Yeah, interesting question. DAOs. I've been involved in a few. Last year mainly. I was on the DAO council for NXM for about a year, because Vandal asked me to help him out, and I was also one of the original DAO councils for Hype DAO. But I actually stepped down from Hype DAO after about a month or so, only because I didn't feel that I was really contributing to the council with the same energy as the other three DAO councils, and it just didn't seem entirely appropriate for me to be there if I wasn't willing to do as much work as they were, or willing or able. And I did try. I was sort of got involved with a DAO based on a guild that I was trying to set up to support local artists in the Cambridge area, to basically try and bridge a gap between technology and art within Cambridge, because we have a situation in the area where there's gentrification, if you like, a very, very, very successful technology sector, and a displacement of non-mainstream art and culture. And I was interested in a guild as a sort of, I think I used the phrase, a cultural hack node, where you could gather these people who felt that they were being pushed to the margins of, within a city that was dominated by, obviously Cambridge has tourism, university and technology, as well as being a small city in its own right. And so there was a DAO attached to the guild, and I was involved in that. But it's something, again, being a community builder is not a natural fit for me. I love DAOs. I love the idea of them. And when they're done properly, when they are truly decentralized, I think they're fantastic. I think sometimes a lot of the work is done by a few individuals, and sometimes that creates a point of centralization. So there's, I think it's really early days with DAOs. I think they're great things. I'm not sure of my place in DAOs because I'm not a natural, necessary community person. It's something I've been talking about a lot with, I was talking with Sasha from Human Guild in an interview with him recently. And the idea of I find communities fascinating because there is a group of people coming together to achieve a common aim, but they're also there because of self-interest. And that could be the definition of tribes and countries and everything throughout history, that you are coming together for a common goal and a common means to achieving an end, yet there is self-interest at the heart of that. So there is a paradox there. And some of my work going forward is an exploration of, I have this idea of the Significance Parade, which is a follow-on from my Nostalgia Show series, where I'm exploring the nature of communities, and Web3 again is an interesting place for that because the community is so powerful. I've been, charmed and really, really impressed by the community power on here. And I'm not a natural community person. I can be quite cynical about these things, and there's no getting away from it. There's a real community effort, but equally, I find the paradox at the heart of communities fascinating, and I'm going to be exploring that in my next series of work.
Yeah, that's awesome. Exploring community in your artwork. Yeah, for me as an artist, I always used to do things very much alone. Just me and my papers. So, yeah,
exactly.
For me, it's also a change, starting to think in a more communal way, because I've always been very, very solitary in my atelier. I'm also a jeweler, so my work as a jeweler is also all alone in my atelier. Yeah. So yeah, it's something, my workshop actually is something new for me also, to be part of a community and make an effort to collaborate and build something together. Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm learning a lot because I'm really not used to that. Yeah, getting used to it.
Well, that's it. That's exactly my point. That's it. That's I describe my art as a subjective thought process, and the nature of being a conceptualist. And for many artists, you're working on your own, but particularly the nature of conceptual art, you're taking something that you've thought about on your own and trying to just give some kind of aesthetic voice to it for other people to tap into it. And you're not used to being part of a community and understanding how you can help each other necessarily, but it's this idea of a rising tide raises all boats, but you are also trying to raise your boat. So that's my point about there is a sort of inherent self-interest at the heart of communities. That's what they do. They come together for protection, for families, marriages, for love, for support, for all these things. And so it's interesting to me, because it extrapolates out into things like politics as well, political movements. And then I'd see, it's part of this idea of the society of the spectacle, where you have people attaching themselves to large-scale communities for fear of the meaninglessness of their existence. And so that's where I get interested. I starting with a simple idea of the paradox at the heart of community, and then think in terms of how does this, I use the word extrapolate again, how does it magnify out into politics, philosophy, society? And so that's really, again, that's an insight into my process. Find something, a small inconsistency, a small idea that maybe, oh, that's interesting, there's some sort of disconnect there, and then think about the ramifications of that and how far it can run.
That's a very interesting process. I'll read more about it. You'll be awesome. I'm dying to read your giant paper. I'm sure I'll learn a lot.
Yeah.
And why sorry, where did the inspiration to create on Web3, create art on Web3 came from? You said that you wanted to move away from this gatekeeping on the traditional art world, right? And
Yeah.
do you feel that that's where did it came from?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think is that I was, as I said, I'd been a full-time. I decided to become a full-time professional artist a few years earlier, and while I've been reasonably successful in that sense, that I was able to find buyers for my work, which a lot of people, of course, don't. It really was it was this liberation idea, the idea that I really had so much more that I wanted to think about doing with my representative art of my concepts, rather than what I was doing. Felt it was interesting, but it's an art of process really, rather than an art of ideas. And so that I'm repeating myself, but essentially it was that liberating facet of crypto art. I mean, it probably, I guess it's like the early days of Web 2 when there's not many bloggers around and there aren't many people on Facebook or Twitter. I mean, to be fair, they didn't even really exist at the beginning of Web 2. There's not many people doing many of these things, and there's an opportunity to establish yourself. And perhaps it may be that, maybe just the same with Web 3. I mean, obviously, there's a million people trying to mint NFTs on Ethereum and do things, and maybe there will be on Near, and maybe we'll look back in 5 years and see it as a kind of gate-kept, closed thing again. At the moment, though, it really was that liberating idea that you could take control of your route to market without anyone saying you couldn't do it or you shouldn't be doing it, or that you should limit yourself to something that doesn't express the full range of your thinking. So that that's really that's how I see it. I still even with the utopia of Web3 may turn out to be, like all utopias, an illusory rather than attainable. But I guess the thing for me is it still holds the promise, and I even a year and a half in, I still look at it and think, yeah, this is why I'm still here, because I have control of my output.
I was going to ask, why did you choose to build on Near, and do you feel that is because of that is a place that is being built now, so you have an opportunity to help build it and to be in a freer place that's not so, there's not so many people saying, oh, you should do something that sells better, or don't do that, do this, use these colors, use this style.
I mean, I guess with me, I mean, the thing is, as somebody who's been, I'm been near exclusive. I have one piece minted somewhere on Ethereum, which somebody else minted for me. There was a big boom on Tezos. Hicket Nunk started like March last year, and there was real opportunities in there, and it was very tempting to look out the window from Near, which was a very small environment at the time in terms of NFTs, and even more small in terms of crypto art. To look out the window and think that kids in that playground are having a lot more fun, and even then to look over at the same time in the same month as Hicket Nunk started and seeing Beeple's legendary first sale at an in real life auction house going for $69 million. And, I'm thinking, well, yeah, maybe I'm making a terrible error of judgment here. The opportunity cost is massive of being on Near. And, that might be the case. The proof isn't there yet. But I guess for me, as I said, I was dragged. I was blamed Nate, poor Nate. I wasn't dragged by Nate into Near, but I kind of got introduced to Near through that Nate guy thing, and I liked it. I liked the community. I liked, to a certain extent, it was very, very new territory. We could stake out a place. The technology, everything I read about the technology, and I wasn't a technologist, although I understood blockchain, and I had, been around crypto for 7 years by that time, off and on. everything I read, just thought, well, this is positioned for greatness as a blockchain. It's got all the, it's scalable, it's fast, it's cheap, it's carbon neutral, and everything I read about it underneath that just kind of built more foundations to my belief that this was the right place. And I was lucky that I had a couple of collectors who collected my work aggressively last summer, and that really was the leap of faith that said, yes, I'm going to stay here. I like it here. And I'm probably some people might regard it as being stubborn, but I just have this dedication to staying here now, where I this week had an invite to do some work as part of a collaborative project on ETH, and it was very tempting, but I didn't. I can't go ahead with it because I'm choosing to be here and make my home here. I'm not averse to reaching out to other blockchains and other people doing it. I just believe that I'm part of this idea of building out an original culture that's indigenous to the near blockchain. I think it's a key part. A key symptom of a mature blockchain, a mature ecosystem, that you have an original culture that's not just rotating out from other more mature blockchains. And so, on ETH you do have a tradition of a variety of different arts. You have conceptual art, you have generative art, all the new things have been done on ETH, and that's why it is what it is. The history, the variety, everything else. I mean, obviously, to use it is horrible, and to interact with the chain is horrible unless you're willing to burn gas, and it's slow and all those things, and unwieldy. But it was first, and it is biggest, and it has the most variety and the most innovation. And I have this idea that we should be, NEAR has the technology that appears to be a match for anything. And so culturally, we should be aspiring to do more than just have projects that rotate out of other, or ape being the word, copy other, PFP projects. And I'm not against PFP projects. I think we can learn a lot. I think everyone can learn a lot from people like them. I own. So, as I was saying before Zoom kicked us out, before we got rugged by Zoom. Yes, no, the idea here is that, that I think that my part is in helping, and some of the thing that would, the Near Hub space is part of that plan as well, which we'd come on to in a minute. But the idea is that I think Near has got the technology to it's a superiority in technology, and I think we should be aiming for a superiority in our original culture within the Near ecosystem. And as I was saying, that the PFP projects are, I have nothing against them. A lot of one-of-one artists, conceptual, generative, whichever, will cry that it's unfair because it's not real art and all this sort of thing. I don't care about that. I've been, as an outsider and someone who's been gatekept to a certain extent, art is art, and the market will decide. That's the whole point about the openness of Web3 for me, is that the market will decide. And people like this idea of community, utility, and graphic art that the PFPs represent. They answer. There's financial opportunity, community, and they have thriving secondary markets, which a lot of one-of-one art does not have, even on ETH. There is, and that's the thing. And so I think interestingly, I think what one-of-one artists of all descriptions need to do is to look at the PFP projects and say, why do people like them? What can I do? I don't have to copy them. I don't have to think, okay, I'm going to release a 1K, 10K series of generative art based on what I do. And I've certainly thought about those things in the past, but I've come away from them. I think you can look at these projects and say, why are they successful? Why are they so good at marketing themselves? Why are they good at organizing themselves? How do they run their communities? And I think we have a couple of artists, high profile one-of-one artists in NEAR, such as Marco with Starry Nights and Everett with his various generative works. And they have understood the success of the PFP model, if you like. And while they're not copying it in any way, shape, or form, they've just understood and adapted it. And I think it's interesting, but that does require some community engagement. And we were talking about yourself being I would describe myself as an individualist in many respects, and an empathetic individualist. And I think that you say you work on your own, and the effort to engage in all those communities and to build out this sense of community around your work is a lot of work, and you have to admire people who do it. Equally, you have to know perhaps whether your own authenticity can allow you to do that. So I tend to work on a broadcast basis, broadcast networking rather than community networking, just because it's authentic to my character. And so, it's quite a long digression, but I had this idea that we should be building out this original culture corner within the NEAR ecosystem. And I think the way to do that is to encourage people with original ideas and original art. And I think I can do that by showing that there's a demand and a market for it, and there's an interest in it, and helping others sort of showcase their work. I mean, what you're doing with your Metaverse interviews is admirable. And I think, I'm now looking to do some kind of, podcast series myself with other original artists talking about their work.
Yeah.
And so, like deep dive into their thought process and that sort of thing, because I think that's where again, it's community, but it's self-interest in many ways, because obviously I will benefit from the building out of this original indigenous culture to the, on the NEAR blockchain. And, but equally, I understand that the way to do that is to build a movement rather than just one person. And so really, I guess that's what I'm thinking. It's like, can we build an original art and culture movement on NEAR? I mean, there are people doing original things. We need to coalesce them together and to almost demonstrate that there is an interest in original culture, not only on NEAR, but to other people on other blockchains, and say, look, you can come here. There is something here. It's interesting, and it would be a parallel of the mature, forward-thinking technology, if you like, that's on NEAR, rather than just saying we're going to copy one of the other chains and improve one bit, and rather than Nate Geyer saying I'm going to basically just keep going with Mintbase. The thing behind NEAR is it's built up from the ground up to be dominant and to be scalable. And I feel that way about the culture side of it. And that's really what's kind of led me to sort of basically nail my colours to the mast and say I'm here for the long term.
I agree with you. I have many art projects that I want to do. One of them I would like to bring, but now my hands are full. I'm trying to organize to get better at this, bringing my art here, as I'm also an abstract artist, and so it's not easy to understand. Man, how do I get into it and make it work with? How do I make my work in this blockchain? Because it's not easy. And as artists, we're not that. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not very good at selling and thinking, I have to sell my work, and how do I do that? And it's not everything. We don't have to act like our art is only a product, right? That we have to sell.
Yeah,
it is.
It's difficult.
It is important for us to make money, and being able to survive from our art is brilliant. But it is a bunch of questions and things that we have to think about, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a guy called Eric, goes by the name Second Realm. It's one of the trash artist guys on ETH. And he's always at pains to stress to people is you have to, if you are trying to make a career out of art, then you have to understand that it's a business, and you have to think of it as a business. Yeah, to most artists, that's the business side is the tail, and and the art is the dog, and that's the right way. That is the right way to think of it, because the art is why you're here. Why, I didn't. My dream is not to sell art. My dream is to make art, but when you have a statement such as the market will decide, then the only way really that you kind of you almost, how do you judge, if people aren't buying it, you can't afford to do it. And that's, this is, it goes back forever, this conundrum of being able to sell art. And those artists I talked about earlier who've understood about, building out community is the way these things are done in Web3. That's the most efficient, fastest, most effective route to success is the ability to build a community of people around your work, or to be part of a community of people who do work and you all benefit equally or to a greater or lesser extent. The difficulty is when you have people who are not naturally geared for that, and the time that you have to spend to build out a community, it's difficult, and it's what you're expressing. It's a tough thing to have to do, to go against your natural proclivity and your character. Yeah. And so part of what I was talking about is, my style is more broadcast, and I tend to do things like this. I tend to talk about stuff. I write long pieces for interviews, because it's really the only way I can be authentic in my own right. I'm happy. That's why, something like doing, the Near Hub space that we'll look at soon is part of my thinking, that I can demonstrate that by my own actions, that there is a market on Near for original conceptual work or original generative work, or just original culture. I can demonstrate that, and I can also help other people to have a shop window, if you like, within the Near ecosystem by talking to them about their work, or running a gallery, running an exhibition for them in my Near Hub space, and promoting that. But the idea that I can, I'm just about to open up a Discord. I haven't done it because I find Discord, I've got 100 Discord channels. I find it bewildering. Oh, yeah, it's terrible. But, add on that, I think the Telegram, the multi-headed Hydra Telegram and all these different groups. And it's very hard to keep track of it. And that's what the skilled marketeers do, is they are there grinding away, because they understand that building a community is such an important part of finding a market for your art. But if you can't do it, if you're not that sort of person, then it is difficult, because that is the established route to market. And you have to find a way that works for you, if in a different way, or accept that your market will be smaller or take a longer time to develop. Yeah, you're right. And I believe in that you said, that I think that the best way to show people that is possible is showing your example of may your life be your teachings, right? The way you live is what you're trying to teach. It's the best and most authentic way, in my opinion. And congratulations on taking this path. It'll be great to watch. Yeah. Let's see. It's always a work. It's always a work in progress. Yeah, it's awesome. I'll be watching. And then the next question is about that. Is about the Metaverse, right? What do you think of the Metaverse? How do you think that having this virtual space, it will help you reach your objectives and show people what you're doing, and how you can go further with your art? There's, I guess, I was one of those people that had a real interest in Second Life. And I know if Decentricity is ever listening to this, she will say that she was very into Second Life, and and I thought Second Life was great, and obviously it's a precursor to what we have now. And when I first sort of, I think one of the first exhibitions I did was in Cryptovoxels, and I like Cryptovoxels. It's good fun. Where I struggle with with Metaverse. I don't just the multi-metaverse, all the different metaverses, the metaverse. I can't think what the plural is, but is the concept of digital land being scarce. I kind of, this is the idea of utopia again. A utopia is, for me, as a post-scarcity utopia. So the idea is when everyone has got enough of everything, there should be no reason to kill each other. Of course, it's never going to happen because the science fiction has made it clear to us that even in a utopia, even when everyone has everything, they still find a reason to want what the other person's got. And so we'll never, there never will be a utopia. But the only kind of utopia that I'm probably interested in human existence is a post-scarcity utopia, where people have enough of everything and we don't have to grind every day to survive. And there are people literally with, as we know, across the world, vast billions of people struggling to make any kind of living. And the extremes of poverty and wealth are so enormous. So when we then when we think about building out a metaverse and you have digital land that is scarce and valuable, I don't know if that's the right message, And so I find again, it's something to me there's an inconsistency there that I sort of look at it and I think, is this really what we want? I mean, this is, is it like Peter Thiel's comment about, we wanted flying cars and all we got was 140 characters about Twitter. And for me, there's that sense of I think I would, this is part of the interest. It's part of the crux of the question about Web3 is that so much of it is based around speculation and value. And I guess we're all here. I mean, we love the technology, but I suppose we're all here and part and parcel of this idea that there is speculative gains to be made either on an incremental basis as income or by people who speculate heavily on many, many different areas. So the metaverse is going to be the same as that. The Web3 metaverses are going to be based on acquisition and scarcity and speculation. So it's unnatural perhaps to think otherwise. But I do think that if we were doing it properly, we would be making it completely open. But there's resource to be paid. That's the problem. I mean, I've been talking to Jeff Gold about my space in NearHub, which we'll come on to, and there's a cost. I recognise there's an expertise and a cost to building it. There are servers to be paid for. So there has to be some kind of cost. It's not free land; it's virtual land. So but if you ask me what my vision for a metaverse is, it's that there is free land and free everything for everybody as much as they could want. That when you want a wearable, you can just make it without any cost. But that's not real in real life, and it's not real in Web3. So my space, as it were, my not my space, but my space, my NearHub space. So it's called Radio Zeitwarp, and it's this abandoned oil rig idea that's based on the pirate radio stations that used to be in the North Sea off the east coast of the UK, of Great Britain. And I kind of want to have this idea that this abandoned oil rig you arrive at it and it looks broken down, and underneath it there's a kind of thriving art gallery, exhibition space, music space, to showcase different aspects of this original culture on Near. So it's effectively two rooms, and you access the lower room off the platform by going into this, again, old-looking lift. Which is hard. Yeah, it's the hard. Well, yeah,
I love it.
I made some sketches for I had the idea of the concept was mine, and I made sketches for the guys at NearHub. And they've really done themselves proud with it, turning it into how I saw it. It was exactly how I envisaged it. So there's, obviously cyberpunk element to it, but there's part of my work deals with nostalgia and nostalgic artifacts. And so the lift that you go down into the lower area is obviously a kind of very old style of lift that looks rickety and abandoned. So yes, and we're hoping to expand the lower area to be much bigger, so we can fit more stuff in it, more people in it. But so it's still a work in progress. But the idea behind Radio Zeitwarp was obviously to showcase some of my work, to also broadcast from it. But really, I see it as a space for community events around this original culture that I'm trying to foster on NEAR, be it in conceptual crypto art or generative art or whatever, but it has to be original. That's the thing. I like this, I've expressed earlier, I like this idea of NEAR having superior technology, so it should have, it should have a culture that aims and thinks in those terms. And so originality is a big thing, and that can be music, it can be any form of art, so it can be, Sam Toshi's graphic art that he's been doing for NearHub is fantastic. I love it. I'd be more than happy. I see that as original art as well. But that's essentially the idea, is to create a hub for those kind of activities. And it's a work in progress. We'll see what it's like, but it's always been a passion of mine to own this kind of pirate radio station, and so there's something there as well that it does for me. So I'm really looking forward to getting it up and running, and for people to use it, and obviously on a anyone from the Metaverse Guild who wants to check it out and hang around or to use it is welcome to. But that it's incoming, and it's going to be part of this. I've got this kind of 2-year plan that I'm working on for my glitch breaks work to multifaceted approach to building out this kind of original indigenous culture. I've used the phrase again because I feel it's important, but that's really what it is. I mean, any other questions about it? But
it's a very interesting sentence, actually. What do you mean about indigenous culture? Would you define culture in this sense?
Yeah, the 3 words. I mean, so perhaps it's probably better to describe it as an original culture indigenous to the NEAR blockchain. And what I mean by that is a degree of work that's not seen anywhere else. Kind of a type of work that you think that would be original anywhere in Web3. And I think that's what NEAR should aspire to, make a home for that kind of work. We will have all the other work as well, all the other culture as well. I mean, we'll have music that's basically the same as in real life. We'll have incredibly experimental music. I mean, there's a guy called Peter Samuelson who's been doing really experimental music stuff on NEAR for a long time, as long as I've been here. And it's not very well known about. And he's obviously somebody who's not a natural community builder. But if you ask anybody who's been in NEAR the time that I had, that they will all know of Peter Samuelson's work. And I may have pronounced his name wrong, which I apologize. But he's doing some really interesting experimental original work. And that's the kind of thing that I see as an original culture, something that's original within Web3, whether it's whatever it is, and irrespective of whether it's on the NEAR blockchain. Then the idea is that we make it indigenous to the NEAR blockchain so that people understand this is part of the NEAR culture. So that's really where that phrase is. So culture can be anything cultural, it can be any form of creativity. I'm not ruling out, jewelry, for example. I was involved in an art project where it didn't actually reach fruition, but it was organized by Lover Worldwide, and Jordan, Star Wars, was involved in it, where we submitted works which were then turned into what would appear to be 3D jewels. And everything was done, and it was meant to go live for NearCon, I believe, last year. But it's one of those things that I've not actually checked in on the project. Yeah. But the point is, it was original work and an original idea, and that's the sort of thing. Anything that's kind of like you haven't seen it being done anywhere around. So let's take it on board and say this is NEAR has a home for this kind of work. So we're not just, so people look at, so it's not just a rotation from Sol, it's just not, from Solana, it's not just copy pasta of whatever's on Tezos or something like that. So that's kind of, that's really the thinking behind this statement.
Awesome. And what are your plans for the future of your your projects and in your metaverse presence. You said that you are building this place. That is very cool. This platform with a radio, and you already mentioned a podcast, and you want to take your glitch project further, and you want to bring people to your space. What else would you add? What's your plans for the future?
I think I've pretty much touched on everything. As I said, the kind of roadmap, if you like, for glitch breaks.
Yeah.
Looking at that, that's kind of 2 years. I basically, my work is very, very time consuming. It's not automated. It's all very manual. There's lots of different elements in it, and it's very, essentially, it's a digital collage of analog elements. So whether it can be a painting, a piece of equipment, or whatever, these things all start off as analog, real world elements, which are then photographed, scanned, brought into a digital environment, manipulated heavily, and then put together as a video collage, almost in although I don't use much frame by frame animation, it's almost like that. It's down to every couple of frames, something will be changing.
Awesome.
And
very cool.
And so it's really time consuming. So when there's something like glitch breaks, and there's 9 per painting, so you take one of these paintings and fractionalize the background into 9 pieces and then manipulate them. It's very time consuming. But what's interesting is I kind of stumbled upon a way. My intention, the roadmap would set out an idea that the owners of the 9 fractionalized parts, digital fractionalized NFTs, will actually own half the painting, and the painting will be listed on Mintbase using the physical redeemer plus derivative works, so that the owners of the NFTs will also become owners of the painting and owners of some derivative work that using the feedback loop processes. So there'll be some music, there'll be some other generative work. And I say generative, I actually mean derivative work that will spin out of the whole painting. And so, when I actually put the roadmap together for how that process will work, I worked out I could only do one set of 9 glitch breaks per month. And with 24 music keys and only one, there was a Generation Zero, edition of glitch breaks that were released and sold in January, February this year. So I've got 23 left to represent the other music keys. When I say the other music keys, I mean the Western music keys without duplicates and what are known as enharmonics. And there'll be one painting per key because each painting represents a musical key. So we have, that's 24 months or 23 months remaining. And the first one is next month. And so I'm here in the NEAR ecosystem doing glitch breaks for the next 24 months, in addition to the Radio Zeitwarp project, in addition to my long form, big conceptual work on the Nostalgia Show and the Significance Parade, which again, one a month is the most I can do, because they are months in the thinking. You've got to acquire all the equipment, photograph, sometimes some of it. I'm doing one with an Instamatic camera, and it's literally like I've got pulleys and all sorts of things to try and make it work in a video in real life outside. My garage is behind me, and which is my studio, and that's days in its own right, just getting the bare stuff, and then you've got to strip out all the background and so my long form, I call it long form conceptual work because it's audio visual. There's music or sound rather than music. I call it freak music because it sounds a bit like the cool side of the freak hacking movement of the late 80s, mid 80s, late 80s. And so this stuff, I've got, looking forward, I've got 2 years of work in front of me. And actually what I need to do is cut down on anything else I'm doing. I've been doing that for 6 months, reducing my workload elsewhere in NEAR, because I need to focus on delivering all these projects that I've got in the pipeline, plus trying to lift up this idea of this original indigenous culture on NEAR as a kind of movement, if you like. So I've got my hands full.
Yeah, it's a lot. You have 2 years of work already planned. Congratulations. That's very organized.
Yeah. Not sold.
Yeah, not sold, just planned.
Very good. That would be great. Yeah, I'm dying to see it. You'll be awesome.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Okay,
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, well, a lot of thought goes into it.
Yeah, I
So
was
do you
going.
want
Sorry.
to?
You go ahead.
Please.
No,
Oh,
I'm finished.
okay. I was just going to ask what you're working on now, but yeah, you gave me the whole roadmap, so yeah, I can't skip that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, this next one, I think that you more or less answered. That's what legacy would you like to leave for future creatives and builders? You already scratched the surface because yeah, you're saying that you
Yeah.
want to build this basis of a native culture in your blockchain. So uh,
Yeah. I think that's it. I mean, legacy. I don't have any strong thoughts about that at all. I just want to live the rest of my life doing work that I find interesting, and that's probably my main. Talk about self-interest. That's my main self-interest. I don't, on a long timeline, everything goes to zero, and so I don't tend to think in terms of legacies and stuff like that. I'd actually prefer people to build on top of what I've done and go forward and do something new. I'm not really into looking back. I think remix culture and remodeling the past, remodel. That's a key. That's quite an important thing to me, and I find it interesting. But I'm and I think you can really look back at work and find it interesting, but I want people to build on top of what I've done rather than think about what I've done. And there's too much hubris involved in thinking that you're somehow important in that regard. I just want people to go ahead and hopefully be able to do what they want to do the kind of work they want to do. And I think that's one of the wonders of Web3 at the moment. Whether it lasts, we don't know. But that's essentially so I'm not a big one for legacy or anything like that. I'm not, I'm more interested in the here and now and how that affects things going forward.
Yeah, that's great. It's a actually, yeah. Your own work is what you leave, what you build, what the example of what you're trying to do. Yeah, it's all steps to do something bigger.
Yeah.
And if you could give some words of wisdom to those who are starting now, like, oh, I'm just stepped up in Web3, what would you say to them?
Okay. Yeah, it's funny. Someone else asked me this question fairly recently, and I was unsure about offering words of wisdom. But what I can say is that if you want to get involved in Web3, then you need to immerse yourself in it. By that I mean you need to dedicate yourself to it. There's too much to learn. There's too much going on. It moves too quickly to dabble in it because you will basically not really grasp what's going on.
Yeah.
Or things will change. I do think you need to dedicate yourself totally to it, if you can, of course. Obviously, not everyone can, and but get involved in some discords, some public discords. Get involved in Telegram, Twitter's it might be a very toxic environment in some ways, but there's a hell of a lot of free education on there for people trying to find their way. And you follow some of the more interesting Web3 accounts on either on near dedicated or wider on other blockchains. You will learn an awful lot very quickly. And I think that's the thing is you have to join some community groups on Telegram, Discord, and study them, understand them, interact with people. And you will learn through immersion. It's a foreign language in many respects. And the best way to learn it is to go to the country and spend time there.
Yeah, So yeah, so jump. If you want to
Jump in.
get into this culture, just dive in. Yeah, it's a lot. And it can be overwhelming the beginning, but yeah, you get there. Trust it.
Yeah.
Trust the process.
Exactly. Right, Klara, should we go and have a look at if you want to go and look at the Near Hub, because I'm running out of time a bit now.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for being here, Zeitwarp. I'm really happy that you could make this interview. It's been great.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. As I said, this is broadcasting is kind of what I do, so I will talk forever about it. So apologies. No, I enjoyed it.
Awesome. I'm always learning. It's really great. It's been great to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.